I'd like to call this convention to order, please. The regular meeting of the New York State Democratic Committee and the 2010 State Democratic Convention is hereby called to order.
From this convention to take on Aldemano. And together, we did. We sent Aldemano back home to Highland Park. He's happy he's there now. And we put Newt Gingrich on the midnight train back to Georgia. I was, I am, and I will always be a product of New York's striving middle class. Give me the fuel that launches us into a better, brighter future for New York. Not a stagnant New York, not a self-satisfied New York, not a New York that settles for just okay, no. Together we will rebuild a New York that is again a leader, a hungry, searching New York, a compassionate and diverse New York, and above all, a growing New York that is at the very forefront of economic advancement, intellectual excellence, cultural beauty, entrepreneurial innovation. And when I say growth, I am not talking about George Bush, rich get richer, whipped cream on top growth that benefits the big bully with the big spoon. No. I'm talking about growing the whole pie. Magical to me now, as once were the towering high-rise apartment buildings and carnival games and rumbling roller coasters that line the beach at Coney Island. Man, I love New York. Jobs, the economy, stretching the middle-class paycheck. For April, our unemployment rate in our state was 8.8%. In many upstate and rural areas, for many African American and Latino communities, it is much, much worse. Now, we did take bold action at the national level to prevent the financial collapse from destroying the world economic system. And more action versus the Recovery Act, as was mentioned, to stave off, and we did. We would have had, without these actions, the second great depression from the abyss. I do believe better days are ahead. Signs of stability and modest growth are happening in parts of our economy. But there are no lawyers there hitting China where it hurts by pressuring them to stop manipulating their currency and disadvantaging all New York-made goods. I'm pushing for investments in U.S.-made windmills, clean energy, technology, fighting so that we can have hybrid fuel cell cars made in places like Rochester and Albany. And I'm working on reforming our immigration system so we keep the best minds here in New York to innovate and create job opportunities. We have to invest in both old infrastructure like roads and bridges and schools and water and sewer plants, and build new infrastructure like high-speed rail and high-speed statewide broadband, internet access for everybody. Finally, we have to creatively energize our lending institutions to get the resources of the small businesses that are the lifeblood of our New York economy, so they can find new jobs for the future, to see where our future is. Yahoo in Niagara County, AMD and Chip Fab in the Capital District, Canon, its New World North American headquarters on Long Island. These are our future. Yahoo, for instance. Yahoo came to Orleans County, to Niagara County. It wasn't the cheap clean power, though that helped. It wasn't the cold, long Western New York winters that held down their costs because it was cooler to heat the place. They keep the heat down with all those machines they had. It wasn't that. You know what the reason they came? And this is our future. The reason they came is you. We have the hardest working, most dedicated, most talented, most educated labor force in the country, in our state. And we have to set the conditions and climate right so that businesses will come and employ people. Government is not, it's not, as the right wing says, that we don't need government. We need government focused on helping people. And if we stick to that, my colleagues, we will win election after election.
long enough to know. Mom in upstate New York. She came to me at one of my Congress in Your Corners, and she came up to me and said, Kirsten, I just got a bill from the federal government for $25 because I receive child support. She said, $25 may not be a lot of money to some people, but to me, it pays for lunches for my 3 boys for a week. So I looked into it, and I found out that sure enough, in 2005, Republicans, as part of the balanced budget work they did, cut the deficit by charging single mothers this fee. Whose side are they on? I'm all for reducing the debt, but this country should never balance the budget on the back of single mothers. Lead the way with high-tech and biotech, renewable energy and green jobs, through new infrastructure investments like high-speed rail and rural broadband and new healthcare IT and a new electric grid. These are the jobs of today, these are the jobs of tomorrow. These are the foundations for a new, thriving economy, one that can create good-paying jobs, jobs that will allow our young people to remain in New York, raise a family, and enjoy all the great things that life has to offer in our great state. But our opponents have a very different economic agenda and a very different idea of leadership. I believe that leadership is knowing when to take action. We know that government doesn't create jobs, businesses create jobs, but we can help to make that happen. Our opponents want to keep driving 1,000,000 miles an hour with their hands off the wheels, and they do not want oversight, accountability, and they don't show leadership. Our opponents would continue to encourage corporations to ship jobs overseas. Well, I want to see Made in America again. Side with credit card companies and subprime lenders that purposefully write rules to confuse and confound consumers, while we fought for and passed protections to empower consumers, and with clear and concise rules and no more miles of fine print that no one understands. And while millions of gallons of oil gush into our ocean and billow onto our shores, our opponents would actually let BP off the hook and soak the taxpayers. Republicans love to talk tough when it comes to fighting terror and defending America, but it is their policy that sends $1 billion a day to oil-producing countries that terrorists often call home. We can beat Russia in the race to the moon. We can beat China in building green power here. We the fight in the Senate to make sure that we could defeat the harmful and dangerous and unconstitutional student always support a women's right to choose. No. And when we are fighting terrorism on every front and fighting 2 wars, we should not be denying some of the best and the brightest in our nation from serving in our country because of who they love. They are fighting for profits and policy and politics. Above all, we are fighting for people and prosperity for all. Who we fight for. And I will continue to fight as hard for your family as I do for my own. God bless you, and have a great day.